Cool.
We are recording now. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Hissy Fit 2021. Special guest with us, Mad Rupert, today. Mad's
Hello.
gracious enough to join us. Welcome, Mad.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank
much.
you
It's
for
great to
having me.
see you.
It's good to see you. It's good to see all of you.
Yeah. So yeah, this whole Hissy Fit thing is just to kind of talk about, celebrate experiences in self-publishing work, whether that's in print or digitally, or in your case, both.
Mhm.
And so I thought you'd be a great resource to come talk to us this week about self-publishing webcomics and running a Kickstarter.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Mhm.
Um, let's start off with kind of a softy, kind of just like to get to know you kind of thing. But I'm always curious as to everybody's comics origin story. Like what kind of brought you into comics as a thing that you thought you wanted to might do for the rest of your life.
So I think, I was always really obviously the stereotypical, always interested in art from a young age. I liked to draw. When Pokemon hit in 1999, when I was 10 years old, that was like an incredible moment for me. And so I started drawing every single one of the Pokemon. I still have those binders. Uh, and from there, I was like, what if I made my own Pokemon? My own, which I now know are like a thing that people do, but I thought I was really cool, like making my own special Pokemon. And then eventually I learned how to draw people and sort of, went on further and further from there. I really liked to write as well. I think, primarily writing in high school. And then I wrote like weird, like 400-page, like fantasy novels that no one will ever see ever again. And then once I went to college, I was like, well, I don't really know. I like to write, I like to draw. I don't really know how to marry those two yet. So I thought maybe I would go into animation. And I took 1 year at Emerson College in Boston, which I'm living in Boston now again. So it just, life goes full
Nice.
circle. But there were like no, it was a new program. There were no like art classes related to the animation classes that we were going to be taking. Like there was like one elective studio art class.
Huh.
And then that kind of made me realize that like the drawing was what I really wanted to do, I think.
Mm.
And also, I don't like to draw the same thing over and over and over again. So I figured animation probably wasn't going to be the thing for me. I only
Good
like to
call.
draw the cool parts.
Yeah.
So, so then somebody just told me, like, oh, there's this place called the Savannah College of Art and Design, and it's free to apply any day in May. And so I was like, oh, I'll see what they're up to. And then that's how I realized that comics was a thing that you could major in. And I was like, I'll try that. So I just like randomly applied. It was free to apply. They accepted me. So I just transferred without ever having visited the college.
Wow,
And
you went all in, just
I
nobody
went
did.
all in. I was like, I
Nice.
think it's going to be this. And then it turned out to be that.
You got a good eye. You got a good
Yeah,
eye for
well,
that.
yeah, I guess I trusted my judgment at that point. I was like,
Mm.
I really like to draw and I really like to write, and I really think that this is going to be the thing that I do.
Yeah,
So, and
yeah.
thank God, thank God.
I know.
But
It's yeah,
yes,
it's a big decision, and it's always good when it feels right.
mhm,
It's
yeah, I wouldn't recommend everybody make such like kind of snap decisions, but
yeah.
for some reason, somehow it turned out all right for me.
Yeah. I know what you mean though. Like I remember, and I've kind of talked about this in my classes, but I remember when a SCAD rep came into my high school and like mentioned sequential art and like comics as a
Yeah.
major, and I was a junior, and I was like, no, I'm going there. I don't care.
That's gonna be it.
That's me. And as such, I thought, I don't need any of this algebra crap. I don't need any of this. And
I had to take calculus. It
yeah.
sucked. Yeah.
Oh no, I was not smart enough to make calculus. It was algebra 2, and then it was some remedial math class my senior year, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I know what you meant. Like the when someone mentions and you hear that, like, that's what I want to do, just a light clicks on, and it, you know, luckily it worked out for both.
Yeah, yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right, cool. So you made it to SCAD. You're in sequential art. It's working out for you.
yes.
What comes first? What happens first? The web comic or sort of licensed work? How did you kind of break in?
Okay, so yeah, so once I got to SCAD, I realized that yes, comics, I instinctively love and know this. I want to do it all the time. So in addition to, well, so I got onto there used to, I think there's still, I think there is again now, but there used to be back when I was there, which I guess was probably like 2011, 2010 potentially. This was probably 2010. They had a SCAD Japan trip through SCAD Atlanta. And so I got onto that in my junior year, and which was fantastic. It was incredible. It was probably the coolest thing I ever did at SCAD. And so one of the projects, the final projects for that was to create 11 comic strips based on something you really liked while you were there in Japan. And so a lot of people did like autobio comics and stuff. But we had visited the Tsukiji fish market, and I was like, oh, this is the coolest place I have ever been in my whole life. What if I make a whole comic about people who work here and want to date each other? And so yeah, so that project started out. That's Sakuna, which is my webcomic, which is going on 11 years now.
Wow.
It started in 2010. And so yeah, so that started as a school project. That's why it's comic strips instead of like full comic pages, which was a terrible decision to continue it that way in retrospect. But so yeah, so from there, I decided I could keep this going just as like a way to practice all of the things that I'm learning in class, like extracurricularly. I just liked comics so much. I was like, what if I drew more comics in addition to all the comics that I was drawing, which will become a recurring problem throughout my life. Too many projects stacked on top of each other. But yeah, so that's kind of, the rest is history there. I've been doing it for 11 years now, and it's over 600 pages long.
Nice.
And so yeah, so the webcomic started first. I started posting it on DeviantArt. And then I think, yeah, I moved to Smack Jeeves, I think, which is an old, this is far superior to Webtoons, I think, but of course Smack Jeeves is gone now, so unfortunately. We see who won in the end.
Yeah. You jumped on the Smack Jeeves. We all can't have every decision that we make be winners like this.
Exactly. Well, I mean, and again, this was like, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that actually started to gain some good traction, and then one of my SCAD peers, Whitney Leopard, decided to become, she graduated and went on to become an editor at Studios, and so she liked Sakana, Sakana. In my head, it always is Sakana, so I'm probably going to waffle, but it's supposed to be Sakana. So yeah, so she contacted me, was like, hey, I really love what you're doing with Sakana. Would you like to do some licensed stuff for Boom? So that started with covers, for like variant covers for issues of regular show. and then eventually went on to be, I wrote and drew a mini series for regular show. I drew a whole mini series for Adventure Time. I wrote like the rest of the regular show comic. Like 50% of all regular show comics have me embedded in them somewhere. Art or writing or both. And yeah, like Steven Universe and Bee and Puppy Cat and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bravest Warriors and all kinds of stuff like that. So that was like a huge chunk of time. I probably did like 500 pages worth of work.
Yeah. Well, I remember because going back to our days in Savannah, you know, we worked together at Blick Art Materials for a little bit. Yeah. We had that lovely experience.
I loved working there.
Yeah. It was actually pretty sweet if you think about like the discounts and everything. I mean, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember you had just started to get the regular show stuff while working there, and that you probably don't know this, but it gave me a lot of hope for myself, in that I was like, oh, like Mad's got like this gig. It's they're kicking ass on it. Like I could potentially do that too. And like Mad's right over there. I can go talk to Mad. Like this is a real person in real life getting like a gig. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so with that, like you kind of inspired me to go like talk with Whitney and like potentially like, you know, like it was cool to see. Like it was a little bit of like a nudge in the right direction for me when that happened.
So that was
cool. Yeah, no, it's really cool. Like every time, like I have like regular show collections on the shelf behind me, but it's like when I see like there's a group of us, right? There's like you, I know like Pronis did a few, Andrew Greenstone did a few, you know, all of which are kind of involved with Hissy Fit this year, which is really cool too. But yeah, it was really kind of cool, and I think it kind of all kickstarted for me just seeing you and your success with regular show. That was cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
So the webcomic is happening and the licensed work is happening too. Balance, where do you find the balance? That's a lot of work.
Yeah, so it was not a good balance. I'd say now at, 31 years old, I am beginning to learn the right balance for me. But at that time, what I did to balance it is I put Sakata on hiatus for like 2 years almost, to finish all of this boom work. And currently, actually, Sakana is again on hiatus because I'm working on a graphic novel and another project that I decided unwisely to stack all on top of each other. So yeah, so I would definitely say I think I am learning about myself that I maybe have a problem with. I'll get to maybe the middle of a project and I'll think this isn't fun and new anymore. What if I start a totally new project? Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that fire me up again? So I would say if you're trying to balance a lot of work, prioritize what needs to be done first, and then maybe see if you can't put the others aside for a little bit. I'm a firm believer now of one thing at a time.
Yeah, so like would you say, like it's okay to like put something aside and like come back to it, like just like it doesn't have to go away forever, but just
yeah, 100%. I have put things down for years and then pick them back up. I know that that's maybe not everybody can, maintain that sort of level of interest if they're not actively engaging with something. But for me, myself, I'm sort of always kind of actively engaged with everything. And so to me, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense to put this down for 2 years and then pick it back up. Of course, I'm going to pick it back up. But I understand that, you know, maybe people have different levels of tolerance for that sort of distance between
Sure.
you and the project, and maybe are worried that they've, you know, evolved or have gotten better or something in the
Mhm.
meantime, and it's going to look weird to go back. But I am a firm believer of just start it up again, no matter what it looks like. It's going to be
Mhm.
cool. People are
Yeah.
going to say, "Oh, it got really better at this point." Instead of, you know, throwing it down in disgust and say, "Oh, the art changed," they'll probably be interested to see it rather than disgusted.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny to think about the opposite happening, where it's like, oh, they got worse. Like,
Ugh,
what happened here?
yeah.
They got a drop.
And you know what? You know, if it does get worse, that's fine too, because what you're doing is you're completing it for yourself and not for
That's
them.
right. Hey, I like that. I like that. So, kind of in a related topic, you know, you said you've gone on hiatus with Sakana. Prior, you're on hiatus right now, but you've taken hiatuses before.
Before.
Um, what's it like starting up? Do you see a little bit of drop off with the readership, or is it like, and how quickly does that build up again?
I would say that, I mean, I think trying to track metrics and readership for a web comic, unless it is, you know, I should probably do it more because it is my full-time job. Unless it is, yes, your full-time job, this is where you're getting all of your money and you're trying to maximize profits and everything like that. I think that tracking analytics and readership is kind of an exercise in futility, because if you miss one day of updates, you'll see a drop off
Hmm.
regardless. And it's like, people can't wait for, some people can't wait for just one page. But I feel like I have always sort of built my readership empire around them knowing that there will be ebbs and flows in this. And I think a lot of people are interested in the story, they're interested in the characters, and um, especially places like, you know, Twitter. People don't go on like unfollowing sprees very often. You know,
Hmm.
I'm, even though I'm not posting nearly as much, I don't see, you know, like a huge drop off in terms of people who follow me there. So I know that when I start again, at least there's that to be like, hey, everybody, I'm back. Sakana is back. And I get the impression that people will be excited still when
Hmm.
that happens. Um, and but I mean, it is important to, I think, if you're trying to maintain your online presence, to let people know like what you're doing in the meantime that maybe they can look forward to. Uh, I do have the issue of, if I get swamped with a lot of work, I just like won't post for like weeks.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm sort of like doing stuff to make up for that sort of in my own time. So also I think that it's important to prioritize, you know, your mental health, obviously. You know, if constantly saying I don't have an update is a source of anxiety for you, then just say, hey, I'm not going to update for a few months, and then go, you know, go about your business, do what you need to
Mhm.
do, and then I think people will be more excited when you come back, if you come back fresh and happy rather than like, you know, beat down.
Yeah. Well, I think that's some good advice. You know, I think because I'm currently teaching the online comics class, like the web
Mhm.
comics class, um, and we're all kind of starting and launching our web comics. And yes, a part of the class is to kind of talk about like analytics and kind of building a followership and whatnot. But I think that is some spot on advice, is to not get too caught up in that kind of stuff, at least starting out, I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely feel like, for me, Sakana has always been kind of a labor of love, and everything else I've ever made, like personally and published online, has like really been because I wanted to make it and publish it online. And I mean, I don't know, maybe I take it for granted that people are already there and interested in the things that I'm making, but I don't know. It's always, like I've noticed, you know, when certain characters are in the comic, featured in the comic, there will be like a skyrocketing amount of engagement versus, you know, it's like if Jiro's there, nobody cares.
So write him out and give him a little less.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you know, and but I feel like the comic would be worse if Jiro was not there. So I pushed through those periods where everybody's just kind of like, oh, she's writing about Jiro again, and you know, so I think I've sort of learned that, like, you know, as with everything else, there is an ebb and a flow, and people will come and they'll go and they'll come back and they'll go again and they'll, you know, it's just sort of, as long as you are promising and delivering something and it doesn't seem like you're going to, you know, just throw it away, I think people will stick around and be interested. And I think I've proved over the years that even if it takes 2 years, I will get back to it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I think like one thing that when you like, I wanted to kind of mention it and talk with you a little is when you are updating your comic, like, you know, we all know that having a update schedule and communicating that update schedule with your audience is important. What advice do you have for maintaining that update schedule when you're updating your comic?
I was never very good at maintaining the update schedule, but now I know that really the only surefire way to do that is to have the pages done ahead of time. I'm a big proponent these days of, like, yeah, if you think it's going to take you a certain amount of time to make a certain amount of pages, just don't update for that amount of time and have the buffer, and then publish uninterrupted for like a few weeks in a row, and that will do more, I think, for your readership and for your, you know, for you know, keeping people engaged than sort of, yeah, a more sporadic update schedule, unless you can somehow convince them that, yeah, it's coming eventually, don't worry, it'll come, it's like a surprise every time, which is kind of how I did things for a number of years. But
surprise,
there's a new update. Well, I would definitely say buffers.
Yeah, buffers. So ideally, what is your perfect buffer? What do you strive for?
My perfect buffer would be like probably a month's pages in advance. That way, like, if you slip a little bit, you know, creating the next buffer while those pages are publishing, you have a little bit of wiggle room. Like, you know, maybe you go on a trip, maybe you take a week off or something, and you still have enough time then to continue to be ahead of you know, what you're publishing. And I don't know if you guys have seen, there's this GIF online that every time I see it, I like nod my head knowingly. It's like the dog from Wallace and Gromit who's like on a train, and the train is moving forward, and he's laying down the train tracks right in front of himself as he's moving, like at a rapid pace along this track. And it's like, that's what making a webcomic feels like.
Yes, that's so true. Man,
but a buffer will be your best friend for reader retainment, and you know, yeah, maintenance. Just the perfect way. It can be really difficult though. I like have very rarely succeeded in creating a buffer for myself, just because I had, you know, too much work going on. So it was always kind of like a take a day to work on this, take a day to work on this, take a day to work on this. Whoop, I'm back to the first one again, and I don't have anything, you know, done ahead of time. So that's where I think, you know, taking the time to maybe work on one thing at once and kind of give yourself that extra padding really goes a long way. Learn from my mistakes.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
Not as I do.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's cool. So part of that being, so like avoiding burnout, right? Like because that's self-care is just a huge thing right now. It's always been important, but even more so now. We're facing just all this like pressure and just kind of all this like uncertainty in the world and everything like that. A buffer is one way to avoid burnout. What are some things that you do personally to avoid burnout in your work?
I
Or
think,
self-care. I mean, it could be
yeah,
really, yeah.
I definitely play a lot of Minecraft as a form of self-care. And
Yep.
no, I mean, just generally, I run a lot. I do things that sort of like get me thinking about something completely different than what I'm working on. Um,
Mhm.
Before the pandemic, I would definitely say, go places, take a little trip, like go to the museum down the street or something like that. Just like actively be looking at things that are like engaging you in a new way and like showing you something different. So, because I think it is part of burnout is getting stuck thinking of the same thing over and over again and having no way to really sort of disengage from it. It's like it has to be this. I have to finish this. And just trying to find a way to like excite yourself in a different way, I think could help. Also, obviously, taking a break from it if it's possible. Um, I did the wrong thing when I was really dealing with burnout a few years ago. This was like post doing those 500 pages of boom work, and I was like, oh, I don't understand why I don't want to work on Sakana right now that I've finished like 500 pages of somebody else's stuff. I don't know why I don't want to work on my own thing. And I thought the solution was to create an entirely new project that, in fact, wound up taking me 3 years to finish. That was not what I should have done. But now I have a whole new project that I made. It took me 3 years.
There's a definite cycle happening here that
Yes, yeah, definitely a cycle for Madeline. But I just like to make things. So, I mean, in its own way, I think it did sort of energize me in the end. It was the first comic I've ever colored, so I learned how to color comics in the process, which was even more nightmarish. So I should not have done that. But no, I definitely think if you can take a break, just take a break, do something else, go see other people, maybe work at a cafe part time or something. I'm a big proponent of having something completely unrelated to comics that you're also engaged in to
Mhm.
sort of give your brain a rest.
Yeah, I like your also your other way of combating burnout, and you said you run.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so how far are you running these days? What's that like?
Well, I haven't run in about a month because it's been
You're putting running on a hiatus.
very icy.
Oh yes, I forgot. Yes, Boston.
But at my peak, I guess I was running 4 or 5 miles 4 or 5 times a week. So
Wow. Wow.
it was like just wanted to feel something. But
Yeah.
no, and I think for me the ideal running situation is I run along the same route every
Hmm.
single time. Sometimes I go like a block or two further just to sort of like incrementally. I don't really have a goal in mind. I'm not like committed to a 5K or anything like that.
Hmm.
I listen to music. I create exciting movie trailers for comics that I may never ever make in my head while I'm listening to music and running down the street. Um, that's actually how I do most of my thinking and puzzling for stuff that I'm actively working on. Is create a playlist like stocking a
Oh
playlist,
yeah.
put it on, run the 4 mile circuit, and then by the end of it, usually I've figured something out.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's I can relate to that. I do something similar. I don't run because I my knees are kind of janky, but I go for a walk.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
do the same
walking too.
thing. Yeah,
Yep.
I do the same thing. And I make a playlist.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm trying to figure some story plot out, like you said, by the time I've come back home, I figured something out.
Something has, yeah, maybe it wasn't exactly that plot point, but you figured out something.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's oftentimes, the life of the artist is very
Sedentary, yeah.
yeah, we don't really think of getting out there and how exercise can possibly help us. But I agree. It's something that I'm definitely a big fan of these days. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah, 100%. And also it's sort of also doubled in the pandemic. Because I only started running during the pandemic. It doubled as like, oh, there's people around. I considered that almost like my human interaction because I was running past other people.
yeah.
Like,
Exactly. Exactly.
not
There's a little
engaging
more
with them,
reading.
but they're
Yeah.
there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
had to actively move around.
Yeah, it's more akin to an obstacle course these days, but still.
Exactly. Yeah. And I learned how to run with a mask over my face. So I figure once we don't have to do that anymore, I'll take it off and I'll be even more powerful.
That's right. That's right. It's like running with weights on your legs now.
Exactly.
Like,
That was like Rock Lee moment. Yeah.
that's right.
It's like,
Yeah, that'll be that'll be a sight to see. They'll be zooming
exactly.
around
My
Boston.
chest just expand and just take off down the street.
Oh man, well, that's something to look forward to. Spring
Yes.
can't get here soon enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
Man. All right, so running a web comic, is there any other advice, just maybe something we haven't covered with web comics you want to share before we because there's another side to this talk that I definitely want to spend time on, which is Kickstarter. But
Yeah, I definitely think wrapping up my webcomic advice would definitely be understand that if this is going to be a longer project, it will take years to finish. And that's, can you commit to something that might take, 3 or 4, or in my case, maybe up to 15 years. And then, you know, you don't always have to be active on it. If it's going to be a long project, it's 100%, I think, permissible to take breaks from it, come back refreshed. Try and post stuff in as many places as possible just to sort of, increase the chances that people will see it. I pretty much am only on Twitter these days, but in my heyday, I was posting on DeviantArt, I was posting on Tumblr, I was posting on Twitter. I don't understand Instagram or Facebook at all, so I just kind of pretend like they don't exist. I understand now that TikTok is becoming a big place for people to sort of preview their comics. I also can't say, I think I'm part of a phase of webcomics. Maybe like there was like phase 1 with like the OG webcomics.
yeah.
I might have been at the tail end of phase 2 in like leading up to 2010 and maybe like the first few years of the 2010s, where it was mostly Smack Jeeves and still individual websites, which I still have. I still have my individual website, which is where I primarily post. And nowadays it's webtoons and tapas, and I feel like a dinosaur. I'm like, vertical scroll, who cares? Why would you read it like that?
Yeah. No, it's really cool to see actually, like the evolution here at SCAD. Like, we're alums at SCAD. We were at SCAD during a certain phase of the industry when building a website was something you kind of needed to know. And then it was sort of like, well, webcomics, like what is the form of webcomics? Webcomics can be anything. It was like that was kind of the edge of the industry as we know it. And now, like, I think it's really cool to see students, if it's not part of the rubric, requesting or seeing if they can submit a scroll comic and kind of exploring the scroll comic. I wonder,
because I don't think that this will be it. I don't think that this will be webcomics final form.
No.
And yeah, I'll be interested to see like in another 5 years, where are we at with all of
Mhm.
this? Because it does really seem like there's like a seismic shift in web comics like every 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the scroll comic, there's still definitely room to evolve in that, where like, you're going on the vertical axis, but what if you introduced a
Yeah,
side story on the horizontal?
that's what I want to know. As
Yeah.
a person who publishes a strip format comic, which has never been able to be viewed full size on any browser or phone, that's what I
Yeah.
want to know.
Yeah, and you could do like a combo. You could have some side stories be horizontal and intersect the different, it's pretty crazy to think about, like
Yeah,
the future.
the future.
Yeah, I know the future. Um, all right, so let's turn the corner into Kickstarter
Kickstarter, nitty
Ville.
gritty.
Yeah. So I guess the kind of the first question is probably obvious, but why Kickstarter? Why did you get involved with Kickstarter?
So I think that Kickstarter, if you have a certain amount of readers, I think that Kickstarter is a pretty surefire way to get books. I would primarily use it to make something that it would be probably too expensive to sort of just print on your own and hope to sell. It's
Mhm.
almost sort of like taking pre-orders in my mind. That's sort of what it's, you know, analogous to. And yeah, so and when you are printing, the first rule of print is that the more you print, the less expensive each unit is. So if you have, 700 people reading your comic or something, and each one of them wants to buy a comic, you could very easily then print 1,000
Mhm.
books at a much reduced rate per book, and then have more left over to sell later. You're sort of like, you know, you're flush with comics then.
Mhm.
You're and I've also used it for pins. For I think a lot of people use it for like on a smaller scale for like pin Kickstarters,
Mhm.
are like I would say if you want to practice Kickstarter before you commit to like a really big one, I would do pins. Just do a pin run.
That's really interesting, like, really cool to hear. I had never really heard of like a practice Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So why pins? What's good about the pin?
Because
Uh,
pins are like they're right on the cusp of being like too expensive to just buy for the heck of it, but like you don't sell them for like tons of money. So it's sort of that nice middle ground of like it you could run a Kickstarter for like with $1,000 goal and print like 300 pins and ship them, and like that would be it.
yeah, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and if each pin costs $10, then you only need 100 people to pledge to the Kickstarter, and you've made the goal.
Yeah.
Of course, it will be different than that because there's shipping and everything. Kickstarters are very, very complicated, and that's why I'm saying maybe it would be good to like try something very small first. If you are,
Mhm.
a zine might be even smaller, or like even
Mhm.
like stickers. You could print stickers and have a goal of like $300 or something, just to sort of see how it works.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's great advice. That's super great advice. And so kind of getting into the more complicated sides of things, and maybe like packaging in a way of like, pieces of advice for running a Kickstarter.
Okay.
Um, how like what are some of those things that kind of can make Kickstarter a little bit more complicated and
Okay. The things that can make Kickstarter really complicated are how many things are you making, including like outside of like if you're making a book, are you also making like a keychain and stickers and a print and like a lanyard or whatever as bonus rewards? uh like feature creep, in video games is like, are you promising too much, too many individual things? And then you have to think about how are these things going to ship, if it's a book, You might be thinking, oh, I'll just ship media mail. That's really cheap. But media mail does not have like nearly as many protections or like handling instructions as like priority mail, which is like 3 times as expensive for a book. So it'll be like, the book probably weighs like a pound or something. And that's a lot more expensive to ship than like, a little zine that maybe weighs like 5 ounces or something in packaging. What are you going to package it in? If you are making bonus rewards, are the bonus rewards going to change the size of the packaging? Can everything still be flat? Can you just lay it all on the book? Or if you're printing like, a figure to go with it, or even a pin with a back on it, like, could that be smushed against the book and make a big indent? And then every single person who gets it has this like, ruined book. But yeah, so those are all things that you need to consider. I'm talking, most of what I'm probably going to say will be mostly geared towards me assuming that you're going to be doing a book Kickstarter. But also, are you printing in black and white or color? Color obviously costs a little bit more. Not as much more as you'd think, but it's more. And then finally, taxes, which is maybe the scariest part of a Kickstarter. If you're going to do a Kickstarter, try and do it in the beginning of the year, because it's better if you can spend all of the money that you need to spend within the same fiscal year, so that at the end of the year, the IRS isn't like, hey, wait a minute, where'd you get this $20,000 from? And you're like, oh no, that's to print the book. And it's like, nope, you have that, so you have to give us our part at the end of the year. If you haven't spent it yet and deducted it from your taxes, then you may be in the hole. You might not be. You've given to taxes, and you might not have enough left over to actually print the book. So
that is very important. That is a very key piece of advice.
If you're gonna do a Kickstarter, spend all the money in the same year that you do the Kickstarter, and deduct it all from taxes.
Yes.
Keep a detailed list of your transactions.
That's huge.
Also, one final thing is, do not count on Kickstarter as an income, because even if you've made like $40,000 on Kickstarter or something, you're going to see probably less than $10,000. If we're being generous, maybe like, if you're being super safe, you're going to see maybe like $5,000 from a Kickstarter of that amount. And everything else will go into shipping. It'll go into reshipping books that have been lost. It'll go into printing, all of those bonus rewards, everything like that. It's really not like a reliable source of income. What you're doing is creating a product that you could then theoretically sell for a higher markup later, basically.
Yeah, so that's good. So running down the things to think of mind and to incorporate into your end goal are costs for like printing, shipping,
packaging.
What about like, I've heard of some people doing like emergency funds for like those extra things of like.
I would definitely, if you feel like you have a safe amount that you're ready to kickstart, I would add maybe like another 1,000, maybe another 2,000, depending on how high your goal is on top of it, just in case. Because you might get slammed with taxes at the end of the year. You might have a misprint. Something might misprint. There might be another snowstorm in Texas, and every single package that you send to Texas is obliterated, and you have to resend all of them. Something like that.
Gosh, you're making me sweat just saying.
So many things can happen. When I did my first Kickstarter, I've used a lot of help from fulfillment companies to do my Kickstarters, which is a service which costs more money. So you have to factor this cost then into if you're going to use a fulfillment service, they charge a premium per package to assemble it and then ship it for you. and then you have to pay shipping.
Wow, that's sweet.
Yeah, I mean it's fantastic if you have a ton of other things to do and
Yeah,
can't spend, a week or two just assembling books and shipping them.
yeah.
Um, but in my very first Kickstarter, the fulfillment company that I was using accidentally gave me the wrong account number to
Oh,
transfer like $20,000 to, and they were like, "Did you send it?" I was like, "I sent it. I sent you that money like 2 weeks ago." They're like, "We don't have it." It's like, what?
no.
That was like maybe the darkest night of my life. But they found it. It was in one of their other accounts.
Oh
Like,
man.
how do you lose $20,000?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so things like that might happen and shorten your lifespan
Mhm.
dramatically. But yeah, so anything could happen.
Yeah, well, kind of being open to the adventure for sure.
Yes, yeah. It's going to be a wild ride, regardless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, it will probably be late. You will probably fulfill late, regardless. If it's your first Kickstarter, it's almost guaranteed that it's going to go at least a few months over time, and I think people just expect that these days.
So, what are some factors contributing to that, would you say?
Uh, well, I kickstarted a book last February, and then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And I've just this past week finished up resending all of the lost packages. Most people didn't get any of their rewards until like 3 months ago,
Oh, wow.
which was like a year almost over
Yeah.
time. But that was because the pandemic basically shut down like every major pipeline. Like we couldn't get cardboard boxes, we couldn't ship anything from China. The USPS was like borked. It was everything was wrong.
Oh my gosh.
And as long as you like maintain contact with the people that have, given you their money in return for eventually
Mhm.
something, they're generally understanding. You know,
And that's
it
done
really
through
is
kind of
outside
like,
of your control. Yeah.
yeah. And so where is that done? That's done through like the emails that you get, like via email. You kind of just email update them as things progress.
Yeah, and on Kickstarter, you can update the Kickstarter page directly with that sort of gives like a timeline of like, if you look back at Kickstarters that you've pledged to, you'll usually see something like shipping update 1, shipping update 2, this has been delayed, final
Mhm.
shipping update. It's almost every single Kickstarter will have an update at some point that says this thing has been delayed. So, in my case, it was quite a few. It was like, hey, the pandemic's still happening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope that people were a little bit more understanding in that case.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
Yeah. Oh, and one final thing that I think can really, really make or break a Kickstarter is have like 99% of everything done before you launch the Kickstarter.
Ooh,
Like I
and
I would never suggest using Kickstarter as a way to fund a comic that you have not yet made. Ever. Like I would never ever suggest that. Because I've seen it happen a lot, and then inevitably you'll get a few updates that are like, this is going well, here's the update, and then eventually you're going to hit a point where it's like, oh, I didn't get all the pages done this week, or like, oh, I don't have an update, and then like it'll continue like, oh, I'm a little behind, I'm a little farther behind, I'm a little farther behind, and
mhm.
then it becomes a source of anxiety, and eventually they don't even want to look at it anymore, and then
Yeah,
updates
no.
stop. So
That's absolutely right. And it's a little bit different, right? It's like we were talking about putting it on hiatus. Like once you've kind of committed and taken somebody's money, it's
yeah.
a little less cool to go on hiatus.
Exactly. Yeah. Once you've taken somebody's money, like you can't go on
Yeah.
hiatus. So you have to be prepared. I think it's a lot easier on you to do all of that hard work up front. And then, if you if if you have sort of like baked in to your campaign, like, stretch goals. You're like, if we hit a certain amount of money, everybody's getting a keychain or something like that. I would have the keychain done beforehand, regardless whether or not you think you're going to get that stretch goal done. In addition to all, like, the whole book, end matter, front matter, like, write your copyright information on the front already, have all of your acknowledgments done, have your chapter illustrations finished, just your cover, everything, because that will also make advertising the Kickstarter easier, because you can say, hey, this is in it, and this is in it, and this is in it. And even if you don't manage to get that keychain stretch goal, you can always print the keychain on your own later and sell it at a convention or something.
Yeah, I think that's great. And stretch goals can be a little bit tricky in that they are kind of separate projects to balance within the whole project.
Exactly.
What are some, like, kind of suggestions for kind of maybe like easier, less
the easiest thing would be to only make flat items, like bookmarks, postcards, prints. I would maybe only commit to like 3 or 4 stretch goals. Have or stickers. Stickers are my favorite thing ever in, like, the whole world to add to anything, because they're pretty easy to make and they're flat. You just slip them right in the front of the book. But and they don't cost very much to make. So it's just like a nice, easy thing for you to just add with pretty low stress. Like, if you're gonna, I would really recommend against making things like pins, and a keychain maybe that's like right in the middle is kind of flat.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I was gonna do like a stretch goal thing, I would say, hey, I'll add a little bonus comic to the back of the book if we get a certain amount of money, and already have that bonus comic finished.
Yeah.
That's like, you put that at your stretch goal that you already assume you're going to hit, just so you can be like, hey, it's already here. Here you go.
Yeah.
I would, really don't overpromise. Just do what's easiest for you. Do a little comic, some stickers, maybe a print. That's it. It can all go in the front of the book. Just like put it all in a little envelope, just slide it right in there and package it and send it.
That seems like a plan to me. I think that makes a lot of sense. As hot as pins are right now, and maybe it's just a little bit too much to consider that.
For your first Kickstarter, I would not recommend pins, unless it's only a pin Kickstarter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, good. Okay, so real quick, we are nearing the 1 o'clock mark. I don't want to keep anybody past our intended schedule, but we do have.
I'm free if you want to keep.
Oh, wow. All right.
I have nothing to do other than work, but hey, who works?
Nice. Excellent. Well, of course, Hissy Fit demands that we clear our schedules, and but no, I appreciate you doing that. Well, let's do this. Let's open it up to questions from the attendees right now. What I'd like you guys to do, if you have a question, put it in the chat, and we'll go that way, just so there's not a lot of confusion and raising hands and talking over in that way. While you guys are formulating your questions, Matt, I have a lightning round. I didn't prepare you for this, but that's part of the fun of a lightning round.
Okay. I'm ready.
Any pets in there in Boston?
Yes. Oh, wait.
Oh, yes.
It's good. Gizmo. He's 14 years old.
Oh my gosh, Gizmo.
He's a very old, very mean little baby, but we love him.
No matter how old they get, they're still babies.
That's right.
All right. Second question, related. Is Gizmo named after anybody, or is that just popped in your mind?
My mother-in-law found him, or her coworker found him on a highway in Alabama. And so my brother-in-law actually named him Gizmo after the gremlin from the movie Gremlins.
Yes.
And we had no say in that. But that is what he responded to. So that's why he's named that. I had not even seen Gremlins.
It seems fitting, like a fitting name. It's not that it's like jarring. It's a
It does
good
have
name.
the giant ears.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Mint chocolate chip.
Oh, you knew that immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately.
I like all the green ice creams. I like pistachio, mint chocolate chip, and matcha, and the color green in general.
Yeah, green is solid. I'm a new convert to the pistachio. I remember growing up, my mom always ordered it, and I was like, that's weird. That doesn't taste like mint. But I recently had a great pistachio that, like, oh man, it's amazing.
The pistachio at Leopold's in Savannah is like the most incredible pistachio ice cream I've ever had in my life.
Oh man, you had to bring up Leopold's. Oh my gosh. All right, and then finally, the last comic that you read.
The last comic that I read, well, I didn't exactly read it, but I have a problem with buying like French comics that I can't read.
Oh.
I like the way that they look. Yeah. So I'll just buy these. Anytime I see something online that I think looks interesting, I'll like go to amazon.fr, type in the French name, find it, and then order it from France to my home.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, very good. It looks like we have some questions in the chat. So let's go there. Let's see. This first one is a little bit conversational. So I was originally going to make a graphic novel, but after discussing it with my friend who I'm working with it on, we decided that the best bet might be webtoons. However, I realized it's a different format, essentially one long scrolling format. Yeah. Is there change in format worth the potential trade-off for convenience?
So are you saying that, I guess the way that I'm interpreting this is that obviously Webtoons favors the long scroll format, but are you, I guess, would it be okay to make something in a different format that's not necessarily the scroll? And I would say, screw Webtoons, make that comic look however you want it to make. Obviously, I mean, that's why I think that's why I want to see where everything is in 5 years, because obviously Webtoons is sort of cornering the market on that right now. So like whatever they say is what they're going to try and force onto their user base. So right now they're favoring, force is a strong word, but right now they're favoring the long format, the long scroll format. But I definitely think if you want to make, regular comic pages, if you want to make strip format, I think that you should. I think that your format should be as personal to you as whatever story you happen to be making. And I don't think that in the long run, it's more important to do right by what you think is right for your comic rather than trying to change your comic to fit a specific platform.
Yeah, I think
go for the pages. I have a bias against just making pages and not the scrolling format. So of course I'm going to say screw scrolling.
Very good. All right, so let's see here. Moving down, Natalia asks, have you considered doing a side job when starting out, which we both know is true?
Yes.
Have there been times where you felt like giving up because you felt it wasn't going anywhere?
Well, obviously, yes. Kevin and I worked at Blick Art Materials together when I was first starting out. And I did leave that job to start working on Boom pages full time. I definitely have always had a contingency plan in my head. Like, if this is not going anywhere and I've hit a dead end and I don't see any path forward, or I'm sick of comics or something like that, I would just get probably a retail job. Like,
Mhm.
in my mind, as a cartoonist who has been working in isolation basically for like the last 7 years, like, just working from home, I'm like, I don't care what it is. I would take any job with other people in a heartbeat just to like change it up. And I really feel like if I were to get to a point where, I really hated comics and didn't want to move forward with it, or I didn't think it was doing anything for me, I feel like a change like that might even, refresh my, love for it if it was less stressful thinking of it as like my main thing, my full-time thing.
Mhm.
So I've always thought to myself, I'll just get a job at a cafe or something
Mhm.
like that. I also have been thinking recently, like going into my 30s, like what if I got into like the publishing side of stuff? Like what if I
Mhm.
started applying to like, I don't know, editorial assistant positions and stuff like that? Like where could I go? Where else could I go other than comics? What are my other interests? And so I have been looking at like, publishing internships and even shipping internships. I actually really like to ship, like package and ship store orders and Kickstarters and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I would be even interested in like manufacturing or something.
Yeah. That's cool, and that's a good point. Comics provides a ton of different jobs, not just on the creative side.
Hmm.
Having worked for a publisher myself, I can tell you, yeah, like I think that's a great place to look, especially if you have a sequential art degree. In that, at the end of the day, whether it's a sales job or marketing or graphic design or even production of some kind, how it it it
You
should
know
be
what the
done.
end is supposed to look
Yeah.
like, so it can kind of help you.
And
Yeah.
to that, if you are an expert to that, as like as far as that aspect of the job,
Hmm.
I think that's a great little bit there that I think is not always considered when the job hunt is happening.
Yeah.
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 All right, cool. I'd say we have time for one more today, because this time it's my schedule. I have to just be mindful of.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
But let's see. So next up we have Kelsey. I arrived late, Kelsey. Shame on you, but I'm glad you're here. Uh, but I have a question about, when do you know that you can make a successful Kickstarter? Is it audience size, etc.? When should you consider?
Yeah, I think that if you've been doing it, I'm going to say for a few years, if you have like maybe 100 pages done and maybe 200 pages, even better, whatever, and you're getting consistent engagement on each page, like people are, retweeting it or commenting on it or what have you, um, then you can sort of start to gauge, I guess. People are reading it, people are interested, actively interested in it, they're following it. They would probably be interested in owning it in some way. And I mean, you can also ask your fans. You can, I don't know if you do like live streams, or I guess it's not live streams anymore. It's like Twitch streams and stuff like that.
Mhm.
If you're, yeah, doing art on stream, sort of, getting to know who's reading your comic, how interested and invested are they. um, and then I always say, add a little something to the book that is not online, and that they can't just, give them a little extra incentive maybe to go for the book then. And
Okay.
I think eventually you'll probably start to know, like, I could probably, it'll like feel maybe a little less like nobody's reading, nobody's interacting, as soon as you sort of start to get a sense that like people are, yes, interested. Then I think you can start to think about Kickstarter.
Okay.
So start small first,
Mhm.
like a short book.
Mhm.
So
Like,
500 pages omnibus of all
yeah.
of my work.
Yeah, no, see, the smartest thing to do is to break that up into 3 or 4,
Oh,
so that you get money for each
that's
There you
book.
go.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
give some, then give people something to look forward to in the future too. It's like, oh, volume 2's coming out soon.
See, we're already putting together a marketing plan.
There you go. Yeah, a whole market.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Matt, for joining us. This has been super, super insightful as far as just all the little bits of advice that you've been throwing our way. Really, again, it's really good to see you. And, you know, hopefully our paths will cross someday in the future at a future comic convention when those.
Oh, if they ever happen again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So real quick, once Zoom is done working the magic, this video will go up on the Hissy Fit website for all to enjoy. If you're attending this live session live, thank you for doing so. Be sure to share the link in your own social media circles to get eyes on not only this awesome presentation, but also the Artist Alley, which is blowing up, which is awesome. But thank you all for participating in today's Q&A with, once again, Mad Rupert, the legend.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. This is super fun, and I'm glad that hopefully I said some things that people will find helpful.
Yes, yes, I can attest to that. All right. Well, thanks everybody. I'm gonna hit stop record now.